Um, there was a question this morning about what municipalities are doing to mitigate their carbon, and my presentation is basically about what Durham is doing to that effect. I'll touch a bit about, I'll give you a bit of background of who Durham is, touch a bit about cap and trade. I know Tej talked about that today, so I'll just gloss over in the interest of time. And then I'll talk about some of the initiatives that we've done over the past few years to mitigate our carbon footprint, and then talk about just touch about some things that we're looking at doing in the future to do that. I'd like to start off with this slide, because every time we tell somebody we're from Durham, they say, "Oh, you're from North Carolina." No, we're one of the largest geographical regions in Ontario. We're Toronto's neighbor to the east. We're 8 local municipalities. We're 2,500 square kilometers, population of almost 700,000 people. We manage about 250,000 tons of solid waste a year. And we currently have you can see the numbers on the board. We're currently diverting 55% of our waste from disposal. We have a plan for 70%, and I'll touch a bit about what we're doing to reach that also. So 700,000 households, residents almost, about 220,000 households. We service about 400 apartment buildings. That's about 25,000 units. There's some commercial in the local BAAs, but that's about it. We have 3 drop-off facilities, 4 hazardous waste facilities. We have 7 closed landfills, 1 MRF, 2 contracted composting facilities to deal with our green bin material and our leaf and yard waste material, and a recently opened DFW facility that's been open for just over a year now. I'll just gloss over this on cap and trade. So in April 2015, it was proposed by the Ontario government to do a cap and trade program to join on Quebec and California. It was introduced in February 24th of this year as part of the provincial budget, and it received royal assent on May 18th. The intention is to raise about $1.9 billion annually from sale of carbon allowances to use towards improvements in technologies, building, emissions and transportation. They're also looking at doing some R&D into redoing the Ontario Building Code to make buildings more carbon neutral. So there's some interesting promises there. So we'll see what comes out of that program. Like I said, it points to point source emissions, transportation, heating, fuel, and basically anything that generates over 25,000 tons of CO2 equivalent per year. You can use offsets instead of allowances to meet your targets. And in terms of credits, they're earned from carbon sequestration or substitution activities, and these protocols will be published later this year. And this is interesting for us because we have an EFW facility, and we also have composting, and we're looking at AD. So this for us is quite interesting, and we'll be following this closely. The waste sector in Ontario has been, it's been identified as a generator of greenhouses. It's not a large player, it's 5.3%. But in terms of the material handling and collection, transfer, and haulage, we're also in the transportation fuel sector, which has been identified as the largest contributor to greenhouse emissions in Ontario. So we do play in that sphere too. So we've got some work to do there also in terms of mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. So in terms of a more background for us, we have we've been identified in Durham region as a major contributor. And that's because we had, until last year, 2 years ago, 1 operating local landfill. We were landfilling 100,000 tons of material a year in the US. We had been landfilling in Michigan, and up until last year, we were doing that in New York. We still have 6 closed landfills. Like I said, we were long-hauling transports to US landfills. And we have, obviously, our day-to-day waste collection and transfer and haulage operations. Landfill, I'll go through here so it's, individually our different initiatives of what we're doing to reduce greenhouse gases. Up until last year, we were landfilling our waste. With the opening of our EFW, we no longer landfill our waste. And we're also, with one of our 7 closed landfills, we're testing a landfill mining project where we'll be actually digging materials out and repurposing them, and I'll talk about that much more in a bit. I'm just going to gloss over some of this in the interest of time. Last year, with the construction of our York-Durham Energy Center, we eliminated our 100% of our dependence on any landfill except for ash. It gave us a local solution. It allowed us to capture the energy of the waste that we cannot recover at this time, can't cycle at this time, and capture the energy of that. The EFW does generate gas, but it is significantly less than landfill. And in terms of the emissions, the natural, like was mentioned before, the natural carbon component of that doesn't count towards cap and trade. The anthropogenic carbon does. Our estimations is our emissions are probably about 50% anthropogenic and 50% natural carbon. The natural carbon would be for some food waste, paper products, cardboard, that sort of thing. That's not captured through our organics programs and our blue box programs. So I said we're currently diverting 55% of our materials from disposal, and that's through our green bin program and our blue box program. You know, recycling saves a lot of carbon from using materials, especially in terms of the plastics, the glass, the metals. Making new materials from recycled materials as opposed to virgin saves a lot of carbon emissions. Composting keeps organics out of landfill where they produce methane. We currently use aerobic composting. It does produce some CO2, but it's a lot less than obviously landfilling than methane produced from landfill. Our landfill mining process, we picked a local landfill. It's one of our smallest ones as a pilot project to see what the possibilities are of going after our other landfills. And basically, we're going through our ECA amendments right now, and the plan is to dig out the landfill and sort the materials through a trommel to a 2-inch minus. So anything over 2 inches will be mixed with our feedstock to EFW, and we'll be making energy from it, recovering energy from that. Anything below the 2-inch will go back into the landfill to regrade it and bring it back to a greenfield state. We're planning the actual construction or the actual operation of that landfill mining project to start later this year or early in 2017. Our energy from waste facility processes 140,000 tons of solid waste per year. It's residential only from the regions of Durham and York. It captures all the available energy from the material. It's generating about 7.5 megawatts of electricity from that. 2 megawatts goes to power the facility and to run the operations there, and 15 megawatts are sold to the local grid. It's also designed to provide steam energy to power the neighboring water pollution control plant and the future Clarington Energy Park. Right now, the incinerator is the only facility on the site. The plans are to build this out with industry and businesses that can benefit from the energy from the facility. One of the benefits, on the transportation side, is where we used to, when we were hauling our waste to Michigan with a 1,000-kilometer round trip, or one-way trip in some cases, our transportation now is down to 40 kilometers round trip. And again, the last point here, it does produce carbon, but it's about 1/10 of what a landfill of equivalent tonnage would be producing. So there's some clear benefits there. On the transportation side, we do have, there's 2 things that are on our operations. It's a residential collection, the transfer and haulage. Like I said, we're 2,500, 2,600 square kilometers. That's a lot of area to cover. To date, we haven't capitalized on any opportunities to mitigate our carbon there, but there are opportunities there with fuel switching in terms of looking at natural gas vehicles or renewable natural gas vehicles, and some other vendors, waste providers have done that already to date. It's a proven technology, so it's one of the things we'll be looking at. Like I said, we've turned a 400-kilometer round trip with 20 transfer trailers a day into a 40-kilometer round trip with 18 transfer trailers a day. And the drop in transfer trailers basically is because we've got higher payloads allowable in Durham region as opposed to American highways. When we look at the black bag going to the EFW, after our blue box recycling, after our composting, what else can we still do with that? We look at the composition of that material, and we can see that over 50% of that black bag is still full of divertible materials. So even though we have high rates of recycling, high rates of green bin material, you know, people don't, 100% of the people don't recycle, and even those that do recycle don't recycle to 100% of the potential. And the same thing with the the green bin. You know, 100% of the residents don't use the green bin, and those that do don't use it to 100% of their potential. So there's still a lot of resources in the residual bag. And we're looking at ways of capturing that material and doing something with it other than sending it to EFW if we can. So in our estimations from Durham's waste stream, we've got about 32,000 metric tons of organics that we can capture, about 9,000 tons of recyclable materials that we can capture that are currently going to disposal. So we've been looking at pre-sorting technologies and anaerobic digestion technologies, and we're of the opinion now that, you know, they're mature enough that we can actually use them to sustainable benefit to the region. And so we're going to look at that and maximizing our diversion opportunities and also maximizing our greenhouse gas, minimizing greenhouse gas reduction and maximize cap and trade opportunities. So this year, we have an RFP on the street right now that's looking at capturing all the available pre-sort and anaerobic digestion technologies, looking at different combinations, coming out to a choice of, you know, a preferred option, and doing a business case analysis for that best option. That RFP closes next Thursday, and given the pre-bid meeting we had last week, there seems to be a lot of interest in this project. So I'm quite excited about it. Following that business plan, we'll present to council the business plan on the preferred option, and if council gives us the green light ahead, then next year we'll proceed with an RFP to actually look at developing the preferred option. So in the future, like I said, we're looking at some additional options to mitigate our carbon generation. Our EFW was built already on the stack with a flange to look at diverting the exhaust into a technology that uses the carbon in the emission and the nitrogen in the emissions to feed algae, basically on a hydroponics type of system, where you can grow the algae and then process the algae and get oils from the algae and produce liquid fuels. They're doing this commercially around the world, and once we get our AD on the road and some of our other technologies on the ground, this is a really exciting one that we're starting to look at. We've been looking at it for a while, and we've got our finger on the pulse there. With generating gas from our AD, we're looking, the next opportunity there is looking at either selling the gas or using it ourselves in our collection fleets. So there's an opportunity there. That's being done already. It's proven in Ontario and across Canada. The leftover steam that's not used, we can use that for greenhouses, local agricultural opportunities, and we're going to continue to advocate to shape Ontario's carbon policy to use waste management to help solve Ontario's carbon issues. And that's it.